All right, welcome everybody to the Quant Data Q&A Market Prep Sunday edition. Let me go ahead and turn this notification off. I don't want to hear my wife. We run these every Wednesdays and Sundays for you guys to ask questions. I'm going to be recording the first part today. We're going to be talking about OPEX. For just this Friday, I know a lot of us had some difficulty trading the price action, right? Myself included. It wasn't as easy as it was normally on other days. But I will let you know why I made the decision to kind of just sell some spreads and just let them ride out to the end of the day. We're going to talk about when we want to sit cash, when we want to be risk on, when we want to be risk off. Right. We want to talk a little bit about earnings. I know there's a couple earnings coming up. We might want to might have some interest in some of them, right? Talk about news. I know that this week, it's not a whole lot, but I know Powell's speaking. Let's see if the rumors are true that he is actually going to step down. So, and then we're gonna talk about forward looking. I want to show you something that I found July 25th. So this week, there's something there. There's something there. So I'm going to move this off to the side. And then, of course, I'm going to leave a big chunk of time at the end of this session for you guys to ask questions. As you know, that's been requested. So first of all, show of hands. Who traded OPEX with us on Friday? Did you guys notice anything on that Friday? Because Friday's OPEX, especially these quarterly OPEXs, it's well, not so much quarterly, but just OPEX in general. It's rough. Things change a lot. So the open of the day, we had a little bit, a little bit of clues coming in. Now, something that we talk about here in Quant Data, I know it's a practice that many of you guys have started to echo. I don't really like to go against the gamma. Although this is what we saw in the open of the day, right? So this is 6:46 a.m. Okay, you can see the first 15 minutes, we didn't really do a whole lot. Price was kind of just chopping around. What do we kind of see in the profile from the start? If we're trying to remember these fundamentals, the fundamentals of the data being that delta is your support and resistance, gamma is your target for price, Vanna is, of course, secondary, right? But what do we see at the open of the market? Our target for price is incorrect, right? We need our target for price, that being gamma, to be forward looking. If it's bullish, it needs to be forward looking. So what we saw is that price, as soon as we opened up in the market, we already kind of surpassed that MVC by quite a large margin. We can see that on the net drift, having it filtered for 0 DTs, out of the money, excluding spreads. So we're only looking at directionals. You can kind of see that from the start, right here. So this is your 6:30 a.m. Put started to surpass by a little bit. It wasn't that much though. It was only 500,000. But at some point, we did get to well over 1 million in divergence. So who saw that? So right around 7 a.m., things started to really change. Right, 7 a.m., 6:56, just like this. You guys see that? And so that kind of tells us that, yes, we may have surpassed today's obligation of 6,300. And we may want to revisit it, potentially, and dip down below it. Now, we obviously dipped down well below it by quite a bit. 10-ish points, right? 15 points, just about. For an OPEX day when we expect a whole lot of rolling, right? What happens usually in OPEX? Large market participants are rolling their positions forward in time or closing them out or letting them expire. So there's not a whole lot of new positions being opened during this time. There's a lot of positions already here that want to get out of it. So I want to show you what happens. So this is why we want to always keep our eyes on the delta. But we also just want to be a little bit more wary on OPEX days specifically, because we don't know what's going to happen. And I'm going to show you at the end of the day what kind of craziness we started to see with this 6,300. So we start the day 6,300 at 11 billion, right? On a regular day, you would say that this is definitely going to be a support, especially with gamma showing here as well. That maybe we revisit 6,300 and then we come right back up above it. Now, as soon as we get below it, so let's say 730-ish, we start to juice below it. Look what happened to that delta. So how much premium came out of that delta? How much exposure came out? So we started at 11.11 billion, right? It is now at 4 billion. That is a lot of selling. It's a lot of people getting rid of their positions, potentially rolling it forward. We don't know, right? We'll have to dig into the options chain to see where those new positions started to grow. But nonetheless, you saw that a large chunk of it disappeared. And this 6,300 started to give us a bit of a headache there. So I'm going to show you as well, because I know these puts continue to pile in, and that's when we met low of day, 62.85. Couple things that we wanted to mention. We did mention during the day. OPEX, right? So you guys need to know that OPEX, we generally don't expect large moves, right? There's two things that happen that surprises us. Usually it's we don't move that much. Two, the last thing that happens sometimes is surprise trend. When we just get one direction the entire day. We didn't get that day, and either way, whether we don't move or surprise trend, it's very hard to read this in the data. I'm going to show you later on in the day how flip-floppy this data was. So look what happened to all those positive deltas. This is 10:30, so this is after New York City lunch. This is the one we're trading like right around here. We've seen this before, right? So what do we do normally when we see this? Do we trade? Right? So this is me talking about this. When to risk on and when to risk off. So when we start seeing a profile like this is when you start to say, like, yeah, we probably shouldn't be taking any directionals. We don't really have confidence in the fact that we're going to move through these deltas nicely. I'm going to take you to gamma at 10:30. What I wanted to show you is that this 6,300 at certain points actually went negatives and then started to come positive again, like repeatedly. At what point did we see that? Start coming a little bit closer. I believe maybe it's like 10:18. Wish I had a better replay of this, but we know that minute by minute the gamma did change quite a large amount. I know right now it's not showing it. Not really sure why. So there you go. This is flipped gone. This is gone. 63.10. Where did we go? I'll have to get another replay of this. But from the intraday session during Friday, we continued to see 6,300 flip long and short. It was a lot of positions changing. And that also told us that if the market's going to do that, if the exposure is going to do that, not giving us that confidence. So here's your delta side. It's flipping here. I know we saw it on the gamma side too, though. So you can see like literally minute by minute, it went positive and we went negative in like a span of 2 minutes. And this really told us that the trade day for us should be done. As retail traders, here, look at that big, sharp move down. As retail traders, we have to manage our risk a lot more carefully. We don't have the size of these big, large market participants. Whether you're hedging yourself or not, that's totally up to you. But in this environment, we know that price isn't set to make any large moves. So what is something that we can trade? Like if you had to, right? This is what was running through our minds at the time of OPEX, right? Price isn't going to move that much. We know that everyone's changing their positions. We know that based on IV, the IV's already depleted to nothing, right? By that time, after New York City lunch, IV was at 12% for the SPX 0 DTEs. What is a trade structure that if we had to take a trade, right? This is why I took the trade, is something that we can do. What is a trade that we can do? It's credit spreads, right? Right. So based on this profile, we saw that puts already came up. Everything was settled, right? You can see if you run your mouse through this, is there any further divergence between 4 to 5 to 3 million? Right? Everything was flat, right? You can see it from right here at 9:30. Everything was flat, right? Yep, so everything was flat. So the last trade structure that we could have done, which is what we did, we sold puts, is to sell puts and then just let them go through. Obviously, you want to get really good price for them. So you did want to generally, sell a tighter spread as a just in case. We don't know if things are going to move any further, but we did make that bet. Now there is one day I wanted to go over that. Let me triple check it really quick, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. This day as well. Sorry, I thought I had it here, but I will get it for you right now. There is a question. Okay, the 16th. So someone was asking about the 16th to go over that day. And I really wanted to go over that day too with you guys because this, I know we went over it on that day as well, but this was a very interesting day. I think I just want to go over it again really briefly with you guys because this was a special day. And I think that if with our understanding of options flow, this could have been a really easy read going back in time for it. So I'm going to go back to the 16th. Now, why I want to talk about this is because we made a very strong low that day, 6,200, and there was a couple things regarding this 6,200 level that made us go long. So anyone remember this day? This was the Wednesday. I'm going to bring the gamma to here. This looks good to me. 840s, 850s right here. Ooh, this was a rough one here. 845. So why do we think I am bringing this date to y'all here? Because some of you guys were very surprised. Some of you guys were very, very surprised that we went long on this. And we said that this is probably the bottom, right? We sold that 6,200 SPX credit spread, 5 wide. It was very good money. And we said that this was the bottom because for a few things. 6,200 was a flat number. It was also the low of last week. But more importantly, if you were on quantitative with us, what do we see happening at this low? What do we see happening here? And the clue's here, right here, literally right there. You can see that even though the market was dipping low, SPX 0 DTEs on put side were actually falling. So this may have been a news low, right? The Trump tweet or whatever. Regardless of that, 6,200 flat number. It's also last week's low. But you can see right here, these put spikes going up, right? Remember, the red line, it means puts are being bought. Red line going down means puts are being sold. They are being sold into this downward move, which again gave us the confidence that this was probably going to get bought up. And eventually, we did have a cross. Now, although it is underneath the zero line, The day is already run out by quite a bit. This is like New York City lunch close. And you can see that, yeah, puts continued to sell off. Like they were done shorting the market. Right, so that, whoever was asking that question the other day, he wanted me to recover this. Yeah, this is why we went long. This was a good trade. The more you start to understand options, the more you start to understand how other people, large market participants, are putting on their risk. You can see, right? Our job as a trader is to look for clues in the market to give us an idea of what's most likely going to happen with price. And this puts being sold off into a low, that is an incredibly big idea that, yeah, okay, this is probably the low. There's probably no more that we're looking for here. Okay, so with that, I'm going to continue on with the rest here. Couple things I know that are probably coming up, right? Earnings. So I know some people are looking at earnings. There's a couple of earnings that I think would probably interest me. Intel, I really want to pay attention to Intel. I think Texas Instruments as well is probably going to be important, so I'm going to write this out. So Intel, INTC, TXN, these two, I'm going to probably take a trades on them. Now, I want to show you what I want to look for in these two tickers, or in tickers in general when I try to trade earnings. I normally don't. I only trade earnings when I'm heavily in profit for the week or the month. This month, I'm doing all right. Could obviously be doing better. So we'll see how Monday's performance is. If I do really, really well, then I'll start taking some of these earnings trades. Why am I not looking at Google and Tesla? I think Tesla is already, a little bit too crazy. I think for earnings anyways, Tesla is just off my list. I can't do Tesla anymore. I've just lost way too much money on them. But I am still holding TSLL and still wheeling that position entirely. So we'll see how it goes from there. I would like to see, obviously, Tesla go up. I wouldn't mind if they took my shares from my covered calls. But no guarantees. We'll see. We'll see. QuantumScape, I know QuantumScape has moved quite a bit as well. With QuantumScape making, 20% in a single days. That's not too bad. Not too bad. But still, based on this, TXN, INTC, that's what I want to see. Here is something that I really like to look for in terms of looking for earnings trades. Now, I know earnings, nonetheless, is a gamble. Okay, I really want to stress that. Earnings is not easy because exposures, dealers and market participants, they can hedge themselves very well. So not all of this often is true. First thing I like to look for when I even attempt earnings is to see what that week's expiry looks like. So what do we see on TXN? Generally, it does look like there's a lot of long deltas behind us. This is, remember, going back to delta and gamma. Delta is our support and resistance, and gamma is our target for price. So we can see that there's quite a fair bit of support behind us, right? There's a lot of in the money calls, short puts that are positioned already. 220 looks like there's more gamma interest there. So this is the MVC, right? Based on gamma exposures, this is the contract that's set to pay the most if price were to go up. So on a broader scale, we're looking for upside on TXN. The other thing, if let's say TXN is bullish, right? We're looking at this and it's bullish. I also want to relate it to the S&P. Why? It's because if the market is going to go up, right, generally things are looking upside then. I know sometimes specific earnings, right, they have their own story, they do their own thing. But if, let's say, S&P, SPX is bullish, is it a good idea for you to try to short the market? There's been times where this has happened, right? How many times? You guys will know this too if you have some traded earnings. During earnings, it's bad earnings. The market is bullish though. So let's say TXN drops for earnings. By market open, it comes back to break even, right? Show of hands, how many times has that happened to you? It's happened to me plenty of times. And we know there's one thing in the market that is true. A rising tide lifts all boats. So if the market truly is, right, rising tide lifts all boats. Tsunami sinks all boats. So whether I'm bullish or bearish on the stock, I also try my best to relate it to the S&P. So let's say we're bullish on TXN. Are we also bullish on SPX? Well, let's see. What do we see on this day? Is it a mess? Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong date. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong date. Let's go to 25. This is the date that I wanted to talk about anyways. What do we see here? What do we see? So actually, let me go back to TXN because I was on the wrong date. Actually, not bad. 225. That's interesting. 225 there. A lot of support there. 225, 210. That's kind of your range. So yeah, TXN is based on Greeks. It is bullish for this week. And then again, if we relate it to SPX, is the SPX bullish? Do you think it's a good idea for us to pick at bullish earnings? What do you guys think? Chat's a little quiet today. What's going on? Am I lagging? I'm not lagging, right? Y'all are alive? Right, so if the S&P is bullish and there's certain tickers for earnings that are bullish, you should probably go long. If you're really unsure, sell puts. Sell puts on things that you're happy to own if things don't go that way, right? So that's kind of how I look at it. You could do the same thing with INTC. I bet you INTC, you know, with tech and semis going strong, what are we thinking here? That's kind of interesting, right? $25, that's interesting. 25, there's some interest here for sure. Right, so this is a great segue to go into what we like to look at. Forward looking, July 25th. So I want to show you this because I know that generally when we look at the week, we can see that generally we should be picking longs until this changes. Until the week starts to change in exposures. Do you think, looking at this profile here, that it's safe to say that every dip will be bought? I say yes. That is a lot of interest for 6,400. Now I know we have from now until Friday to hit 6,400. But at this point in time, I think it's doable. I think we remain above 6,300. If we come anywhere below 6,300, there's an opportunity for us to swing longs. We'll do what we can on the intraday sessions to buffer our portfolios. You know, trading intraday, zero DTE trading, day trading is cash flow, and to buffer our longer term positions. Longer term positions buffer our zero DTE trading. But I don't think that as of right now, we should be afraid that 6,400 isn't coming. Until this changes, right? We need to pivot with the market. This is dynamic data nonetheless. But so far, this looks okay. Now, I know we also talked about by the 31st, what's the potential there? By next week, do we see 6,500? Let's see, right? Are we crazy? Are we crazy enough to see that? What do we see? What do we see, boys? Here's your July 31st. Now, we've been talking about 6,500 for quite a while now. We've been talking about it since last month when those orders started to come in. So, of course, these are just ideas, right? But I don't think we see anything different for July until 6,500 is met. Give me a thumbs up in chat if you understand what I'm saying. Of course, we'll pivot if things change. But so far, every time we zoom into the data, it's showing the 6,500 growing and growing in interest for July 31st. So that's still going to be my idea. It's still going to be my idea going forward. A little bit of news though this week that might change some things for the 6,400. Right, we do have Fed Chair Powell speaking on Tuesday. Starts at 5:30 a.m. So that's the pre-market. So we'll have to see about that. And then we have one big piece of news this week. It's really just the Thursday unemployment claims and then flash manufacturing PMI. That's happening intraday, so 15 minutes into the market session, we'll have this happen. I think there's going to be some opportunities though for this week. I think it's going to be a slow crawl upwards. I think that earnings might throw us for a loop a little bit. But personally, I think every dip should be continue to be bought up until this changes, right? I only like to trade in the direction of where the interest is. If the interest is for upside, we're going to try our best to go long. We're going to start picking at bottoms and going long. Intraday trading is completely different though. For the intraday session, we'll have to see. We'll have to manage accordingly. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got for today. I know one person was asking about Tesla. We can quickly take a look at Tesla for this week. I think that there's a few things for tickers like Tesla that I like to personally trade. Like how I like to trade them is I really like leverage shares. So a leverage share for Tesla, I think you guys know I trade this a lot. It's TSLL, one of my favorites. Reason is it's cheap to get into. And if we're wrong on TSLL, it's easy to average down, to dollar cost average down. And we can also collect premium by just selling covered calls if we're wrong, or dollar cost averaging a little better if we just sell naked puts into it. So long as you're willing to assume the shares. This time around, I still have a lot of my TSLL shares. So this time around, I'm not going to be trading it directly. I don't really want to trade earnings directly. Kind of just want my stuff to expire. So that's just me. But this is what your Tesla looks like. It's looking like 350. There's quite a bit of interest there. But we know Elon can do some crazy things. So there you go. Hopefully you got that. So yeah, opening up the floor now to some questions. I'm going to go ahead and cut the recording. Stop recording here.